And we'll go ahead and enter in commands exec include configure terminal. Commands configure include no and default. For this particular account, the tier 2 account, I want to set up the ability for this user from configure mode to include and be able to create loopback interfaces just for testing purposes. So I'm going to allow 3 of those interfaces to be created. And we can accomplish that by the include interface to give us access to the interface menu, and then loopback 0 okay, well it should, okay, the reason why it's not allowing us to specify the actual interface there is because they're not configured, but you should be able to set it up. We'll confirm that once we actually get in. And I believe you have to do that. Okay, so we'll set up configure for include the fast Ethernet, just because I don't want to put in a bunch of unnecessary commands here to get the point across. We'll just give them the same 2 interfaces, fast Ethernet 00 and 01. But under the interface configuration mode, we're going to include several more commands. We're going to include the no, default, the duplex, and speed. We're also going to include the shutdown and IP address. So not a whole lot more, but they can change the IP address if they need to. We also want to include the ability for this user to clear counters. So the counters are accessible in exec mode, so we'll include under exec mode the clear counters, and I need to specify for which interfaces. A lot of learning how to do this is trial and error, which is why a lab environment is so crucial to learning things. You have all the time in the world and you can really get comfortable with how the system works and what you can do to custom tailor it for the needs of your organization or whatever training you may be doing. So in the lab environment, take advantage of it. You're not going to hurt anything. Time is really all that's up for grabs here, so take your time, learn what you can, and it really prepare you for the real world, and especially for the exams, because Cisco's exams are becoming more and more real world as each exam is updated and modified and released. So the lab environment is critical, especially for job interviews, because they're not just going to see your certs and say, well, you've got the job. You're probably going to get some technical questions, so you need to know the material and be comfortable in the environment as well. But moving on, the tier 2 here, I'm also going to give them access under configuration mode to the router or the routing capabilities. So we're going to include router, and under under the router configuration mode, we'll whittle that list down to some commands that may be necessary for troubleshooting or quick fixes, while a permanent fix is created or determined at a higher level, or possibly even at that same level. It just depends on the situation. And if a link is down or someone's cut off, just getting a quick fix and set up and then going back and reevaluating what needs to be done to create a permanent fix. So under the router mode, we'll include no and defaults, seeing a pattern here, and we'll include auto summary, we'll include the network statement as well as the neighbor statement. We'll include the metric, and all these are going to be filtered out where it's applicable to each particular routing protocol. So it doesn't mean that each one of these commands is going to show up for every protocol, but where it's used, it will show up. So we'll include the passive interface command, the redistribute, and the distance. We can alter administrative distance.